Working? Okay. Welcome everyone to this kickoff meeting, kickoff presentation. We're going to start with the first presentation by Derek, and we're going to talk about how to revive blockchain within 6 months. It was a very interesting topic actually. So yeah, I'm going to give the microphone to Derek, and it's yours. Go.
Thank you very much everybody for coming. I've only got 10 minutes, so I'm going to speed run a lot of the things we did. But if you want to chat more, I'm happy to do so. We've been really open with our community about the struggles we've had, overcoming a lot of teams that don't work with Reef anymore, and some of the things some of the legacy they left behind. But let's dig into that. So my mantra for the last few months and going into this year is that getting on chain is still too hard. And part of Reef's vision for 2025 and into 2026 is fixing that. Buying Ether, Bitcoin, etc., not so hard. Getting onto a lot of other chains though, bridging across, etc. For somebody who's new, it's incredibly difficult to get through that process. And so part of what we're working on this year is fixing that so that I can stop saying it. The real problem at Reef, about this time last year, we had very few developers on the team, 2 guys. It's a really small team. We had enough runway to keep doing what we were doing, but not to grow the ecosystem. And when we're competing with Optimism, Arbitrum, Solana, etc., obviously that's a problem. Not that it's a zero-sum game, but regardless, attracting people to build on Reef. No growth funding, I just mentioned that. A lot of promises that past marketing team made, a lot of big numbers that we allegedly had, most of it false. And I fought that so much, and I lost, unfortunately, until they got turfed, and then we had a chance to start turning things around. And as I said, all hype, no substance there. So what do we have to do? Obviously, we have to look through, identify our biggest weaknesses and start to tackle those, come up with a plan to address them, also set a realistic timeline. What are we going to do in the next year? What are we going to do in the next 6 months? What are we going to do in the next month? Like what some quick wins we can achieve, and be realistic and be really consistent. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. Those weaknesses, as I said, unsustainable funding. That's not really the appropriate word. I'm the one who put it there though, so I'll own that. But like I said, enough to keep doing what we're doing, but not to accelerate, not to grow, not to attract developers to the ecosystem. A lot of broken promises. Part of that is other projects who said they were going to deploy. You can look at our old Medium account. Lots and lots of announcements. I wrote myself, as I was directed to do. Same coins coming, not Liquidity, that's wrong. Anyway, a bunch of projects who said they were going to deploy on Reef. Some of them don't exist anymore, and a lot of them just never did, and they just stopped responding. So I didn't own those relationships, but I tried to revive them at some point, and people just ghosting. Also, no accountability mechanism for those broken promises. And the old marketing team, as I said, promoted a lot of falsehoods. And of course, the small team. Big goals, big ambitions, 2 developers. It's not, those things don't really work together. So, okay, thankfully, we had a brilliant community member named Pierre who came to us and said, what if we'd set up our own validator, encourage the community to nominate it, and we take 100% of the rewards. Like, okay, I love this idea, but 100% is too much. I want them to get at least a little something back. So we ended up setting it at 90%. We call it the Community Developer Fund. There was a validator that I set up. I put my own funds into to get it started, to get it into the waiting set. And thankfully, we've been able to attract about 80 million or so Reef, all in addition to that, to get that into the active set and generate rewards. So that's been a sustainable bit of funding that we can actually use to pay for growth. So a major hole got plugged without having to actually give away our tokens, which inevitably would get sold. Let's be realistic. Some quick wins. So that CDF, we set that up in a week or 2. We set up an incentive campaign to nominate it as well. I need to run a script against the server to get the number of wallets each day that we're nominating it, how much, and assign tickets. And we're actually giving away like a free iPhone and things like that, and that was part of that incentive campaign. But I knew I had 6 months to come up with the funding to pay for it. So it was a quick win, good marketing, and sustainable because we had time to actually put the funds aside. An existing developer in our ecosystem had already built a Reef Name Service, but it was kind of half promoted, kind of being ignored by the previous team. We brought them closer into the system, gave them a retroactive grant, and also signed a memorandum of understanding going forward that we're going to work really, really closely with you. So the way I think ENS wants to work with a lot of wallets and things like that, we're keeping them really close and incorporating that into the mobile app, into the account creation experience, so that especially if you're coming in on mobile, it's going to be front and center, and you'll have a chance to make a .reef domain. And we're going to be using terminologies to make it easier for people to understand that this is almost like an email address. People will be able to send you tokens or what have you really, really easily, really quickly, and obviously encourage other developers to incorporate it into their apps. A big thing we needed to do was to unify Reef tokens from Ethereum and BNB chain. And unfortunately, we talked to other teams in the past who quoted us a cost of $150,000 or $600,000 to build a bridge. Obviously, that's ridiculous. So thankfully, we found the same guy who has Mr. Daps, came across via Labs, put us in touch for low 5 figures. We got the job done. It launched 2 weeks ago. It's going through. So that's been nice. Developing more campaigns to encourage chain usage, what few apps we do have on chain, obviously encouraging usage of that, and like I said, communicating more and consistently. We put out weekly or bi-weekly updates for what's happening behind the scenes. We're talking to exchanges, we're talking to wallet apps, we're talking to whoever, and just making that available, and that's been a huge win for us in our communication and re-establishing trust with the community. Grow the team. So we still have some big holes missing that I think are part of a comprehensive blockchain ecosystem. DAO tooling is one, a bridge was one, obviously stablecoins, lending platform, things like that. DAO tooling is coming. We hired a developer to fork coordinate, which I think is pretty cool. And we're given a new branding. We acknowledge it's a fork, but bringing it to Reef Chain. The bridge launched. Stablecoins also coming from the same team. They have a product called Proto-USDC that's going to make wrapped USDC easily available from the existing sources on other chains and bring it over to Reef. We've had discussions with Circle before, so we know that they're cool with this approach. And when we reach certain milestones, it'll be really easy for them to take over ownership of the contract address and make it part of the Circle ecosystem properly. A lending platform, we're working on finding somebody to do that. And then we had a bunch of stuff like the mobile wallet app, an NFT platform, things like that, but few people to maintain and enhance them. We've been able to bring new developers in with that community developer fund and start to enhance those things. We just hired a mobile developer 2 weeks ago who's made a lot of progress already, and so that's looking great. More on the regular comms, so less hype, a lot more substance. I hedge my bets a lot. I'm quite coy with my communication sometimes just because I don't want to let out too much before it's confirmed, and I don't want to set people's expectations up for something that's ultimately very 50-50 or maybe even less certain. And so I'm, like I said, I'm really upfront, but like this might happen, this might not happen. You know, we're literally just in conversation. The weekly, sometimes bi-weekly because I forget, updates, usually on Friday or Saturday, kind of a nice way to wrap up my week and see everything we've actually accomplished that week. Our head of growth will take a lot of that and post a monthly recap on the blog. So if you're not paying attention on X or Telegram or Discord, there's a blog. It runs on Paragraph. It also runs our newsletter. There's 33,000 people subscribed to it. So we're doing our best to make sure that at least the most important stuff gets from those weekly updates into the monthly and gets delivered in a different way. And we started doing a better job of just reaching out to teams who were already building, but didn't reach out to us and say like, hey, we'd like some support, we'd like some marketing, we'd like to apply for a grant or what have you. We're being more proactive and running to them and saying, at least let us help you promote this. We don't offer funding up front if they don't want it, but obviously if there's a need, if there's a good justification for it, then we can, but we prefer to spend time and effort helping market them, get more users, etc. instead. more AMAs with the core team, with the builders. We went a long time without any community calls, no AMAs, no nothing. And even if there's not much to say, giving people a chance to ask core team questions, I think is super important. It's been a lot more consistent in the last 6 months, since last August, 7 months now. And I think that's really important. We got Via Labs, their COO, to do an AMA with our community as well. We did an X Space a few weeks ago with somebody from Motodex, with somebody from Via Labs, with a couple of core team members as well. So just giving people more of a chance to actually ask us questions in a different environment than sending us Discord or Telegram messages. Myself and a lot of the community managers, we've just been a lot more engaged in general on Telegram, on Discord. I reply to posts on X under my own account sometimes, depending on the situation. And overall, people really appreciate it. So, in 6 months, we solved a lot of problems. We established a stable funding exclusively for growth, not paying for the team that was already there. That allowed us to secure a lot of new partnerships. Thanks to that funding, we've gone from 2 developers to 5. Those other 3 are part-time. We don't need them 35, 40 hours a week, but they're available, they're on standby, and a lot of them are active right now. Down tooling is almost done. Mobile app is going to have a complete UX overhaul and things like that. That consistent communications rhythm. We did launch the bridge, obviously, and that's a huge one. We sponsored Web3 Amsterdam. So we've got a booth upstairs, come talk to us. And we've also gotten multiple centralized exchanges to perform a token swap from letting people deposit Reef on Ethereum or BNB chain, supporting exclusively Reef Chain. So we've done some manual token swaps with them in order to facilitate that, and burnt those old Ethereum and BNB chains, sent them to the debt contract, and we're working on others. So what's next? Organize should launch, I'm going to say probably early Q2 at this point, but that's looking really good. Reef Chain Wallet, the mobile app, is going to get a complete UX overhaul. I used to do that in a previous life, design UX, a little bit of UI. So I know enough, there to at least get us going. If we have some funding for a proper UX professional, we will happily hand it to them and have them have another look at it. And then getting that Reef Name Service embedded into the onboarding. My big thing there is that people don't understand 5P, blah, 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 or 0x, et cetera, et cetera. I want to give them something simple to remember, and that comes in the form of Reef Name Service and equating it to more like an email address or even a phone number. Motodex will launch. They've got everything pretty much done. We've got some minor bugs to help them fix on that, but that game's been played by hundreds of thousands of people on scale. We're going to bring them over to Reef Chain. Big marketing campaign, going to spend a bunch of money on it and get people playing the game, using it, hopefully for a long period of time. One thing that's, well, it's not unique to Reef, but is important to us is that all the gas fees are burnt. So overall, obviously if there's a lot of usage, then we have less Reef in the total supply. I want to attract an existing, I'll call it tier 2 lending platform to come to Reef. I know Aave is not going to come anytime soon, but there's lots of lending platforms out there that have at least a few $1 million in TVL. I want to attract one of those to come over and deploy on Reef Chain as well. And we've got a few more tokens to borrow and to lend. That'll make a lot of sense. So that's a priority. I'd say conversations start in Q2 and hopefully sometime in Q3 or Q4 they're deployed. We have a MetaMask Snap that's almost ready to go. We're in our final discussions with that team to get it allowed listed into their store, and that'll be a more familiar way for crypto veterans at least to connect to Reef Chain without having to download our browser extension or download our mobile app if they're really happy with MetaMask, and it's done a lot better in the last few weeks, so that's been nice. One big one, I kind of mentioned earlier, a fiat on-ramp. I've got conversations with 3 or 4 going right now. They all have their pros and cons. We're going to commit to one probably in the next quarter or so and get that paid for and get that done. So that we can bring that into the mobile app where possible, into the web app, and make it a lot easier for people to just put their credit card in or put their debit card in or PayPal or whatever, get a few tokens and start going. HydroStarter, our own IDO platform, which will help obviously new tokens or new projects get some funding. Wrapped USDC, I mentioned earlier, thanks to Via Labs and their products that they've already set up. and a native stablecoin protocol called Mosaic. That's going to be, at this point, they're positioned to be a fork of Liquidity. Liquidity V1 or V2, I don't remember off the top of my head, but borrow stablecoin against Reef. Obviously, we take Reef out of circulation. It makes it a little harder to trade. So obviously, if you want some, you have to buy some, etc., etc. Virtuous cycle. Big goal ultimately is on-chain activity. If you don't have it, there's really no dApps or protocols. Nobody's going to come building your chain. With no on-chain activity, there's no community. With no on-chain activity, there's ultimately no point to your L1, your L2 existing. And so, getting to hundreds of transactions, thousands of transactions every day, where people are doing things that they enjoy, that they're having fun with, etc. That's my goal. If you're into DeFi, I want to have all the DeFi apps you want, or at least some semblance of them on Reef Chain. If you want to play games, great. There's a couple of games that you like to play. If you want to invest in RWAs, there's a project that's incubating right now that wants to come to Reef Chain, and hopefully they'll distribute their income on chain and everything else, just like Realty, just like Lofty, and obviously we'll generate more usage. So, and finally getting on chain can be easy, but we need to make it easy to on-ramp, to create an account, and ultimately to discover funds in dispute. Coinbase Wallet does a decent job of this. I think they can do a lot better. Zerion does okay with this as well and incentivizing on-chain usage, but very much geared towards getting to their zero, gasless chain. But they're good apps. So, and of course, we need a new tagline. So this is what we're going with now. Reef was built for you, ready for everything, and that's my talk. Thank you very much.